everything in between. My name is Matthew Chin-Quee. I flubbed that. My name is Matthew Chin-Quee, and I am your sole host today. We are going right back to the basics. It's just me for today. Nobody wanted to join me, no friends. No, I'm just kidding. I just kind of wanted to do a solo episode because I've had guests for the last 3 weeks, so I just wanted to, just me talking to a mic, talking about whatever I want to feel like. And I thought this would be a really good week just to get a solo review out, because one of the biggest movies of the summer, one of the biggest movies of the year, has just came out. By the time we'll release this, most of the people in the movie space, or most of the people who really wanted to see this, most of the general audience, will have seen Spider-Man: Homecoming. So I wanted to give my spoiler-filled thoughts on the film. So this is your first warning. I'll give another warning, but this review will be entirely spoiler-filled. And then in a few weeks, no, not even in a few weeks, I think it's a week from now, Game of Thrones starts. So I want to start talking about that. I haven't really gone over how, I don't want to say in depth because that kind of sounds like I'm boosting myself here, but just my experience with the whole A Song of Ice and Fire series and Game of Thrones TV series. So I want to talk a little bit about that in the free chat segment. But for now, let's get right ahead and let's get into the cinema chat. Let's talk Spider-Man. All right. So as per usual, when I'm reviewing a movie, and really I've only properly reviewed one movie, the very first episode, Wonder Woman. I just want to give some background onto it. So, Spider-Man wasn't a character I grew up with. Obviously, I knew about him growing up. Like, who doesn't know? I mean, when you're in North America, who doesn't know about Spider-Man? Who doesn't know about the big superheroes? We're not talking Marvel, DC here. We're talking just superheroes in general. It's Batman, Superman, and Spider-Man. Those are the three biggest superheroes, in my opinion, that are just known to the general public. And Spider-Man definitely is. And I did grow up watching Raimi's Spider-Man films, but I wouldn't say I grew up with them in the way that a lot of Spider-Man fans, a lot of movie fans are attached to. I watched them once or twice as a kid, and I liked them for what they were. I didn't read Spider-Man comics. I wasn't obsessed with Spider-Man. He is not my favorite superhero, and he's not one of those heroes that I have looked up to, unlike other people. And that's not a slight to other people. That's just that if you love Spider-Man and if he means that much to you, that's fine by me, because I mean, I have other characters that I look up to, that I'm attached to in a way, and I can completely understand why people look up to Spider-Man in that way. But anyways, in my roundabout way of getting there, Spider-Man wasn't a big part of my life. He doesn't mean all that much to me. So going into this film, my favorite Spider-Man movie, as you found out last episode, was The Amazing Spider-Man, and it still continues to be. And I'm just going to give a heads up now, it still does continue to be my favorite Spider-Man film, despite actually really enjoying this Spider-Man: Homecoming, the joint venture between Marvel Studios and Sony. But for a lot of people, this new film is far and away their favorite film, because it incorporates a lot of those nostalgic elements from the animated series, from the comic, from the Amazing Spider-Man comics. Like, there were certain scenes in this film where people were saying, wow, that's straight from Spider-Man number 30, Amazing Spider-Man number 33, something like that. And I had never heard of that at all. When I was watching the movie, I didn't see that at all. I saw the scene for what it is. But there are some Spider-Man fans who are really attached to this, and that's why they got a little bit more enjoyment out of it than I did. And that's not to say that I didn't enjoy this a lot, but I did, and I just wanted to preface that. Anyways, I actually want to get started with the negatives of this film. When I eat my vegetables first. I get the negatives out of the way. So I'm going to do that with my review here. And as I said time and time again, I'm a score guy, and this is something that Marvel has been really inconsistent with. They've strung me along. For every generic Thor, you have a really fun score like Ant-Man. I really like the Ant-Man theme. And then you get the Age of Ultron theme, which doesn't even bring back the Avengers theme for some reason. They really should have, because that is the pinnacle of Marvel scores. Alan Silvestri's Avengers theme is the pinnacle, and they barely bring it back for the second Avengers film. Doesn't really make any sense to me. Henry Jackman stuff in Winter Soldier and Civil War, that was alright, and then Giacchino comes on, and he's a great composer. He did Doctor Strange, and I wasn't all that happy with it, but he's done stuff like Up. He's done stuff like The Incredibles. He's done stuff, most recently, before this, Star Wars Rogue One, and I really like that, despite some people not liking it. And I hear the score, the very opening of the credits, and this score has been released, and most people know about how he's incorporated the original animated Spider-Man theme in the not the credits, the Marvel logo. And oh my gosh, I turned to my brother. I was like, "Do you know what this is? Do you know what this is?" And they were just as happy too, because the score, it was perfectly adapted to a modern orchestral score, while keeping the same elements from that classic kind of cheesy, I think it was in the 70s show. I'm not exactly sure what year it was in, but it was fun, and it really screamed Spider-Man. And then the movie hit, and we get hit with generic score that's just in the background, just there to fill silence, or just there just to enhance the action, or make sad parts seem more sad, or menacing parts mean more menacing. And it didn't feel like the scores were a character, unlike a lot of Giacchino's other work, unlike the great master John Lucas. Who the hell was John Lucas? John Williams himself. And I can't sit here and compare every single time I listen to a score. I can't compare it to John Williams, because that'd just be unfair to every other composer. But what I really look for in my scores, and this did, and I found this in Wonder Woman, and this isn't a Marvel versus DC thing, because I have found it in other Marvel films, is I like the scores not just to be there to help the film, but for the scores to be part of the movie, to be a character themselves. So when you listen to the score, you can really feel the up and down. You remember, hey, when I hear this theme, I remember exactly what part of this movie, and I'm reliving that all over again, and it's the greatest feeling to listen to that again. I can't hum, or I can't remember a single score from a single piece from the Spider-Man score. And a lot of people are pointing to the Vulture theme, and I don't really remember what that is. It doesn't stand out for me. It just seemed very generic. So score, definitely a negative. Nitpicking negative, but it is a negative for me. Another one would be, and I can't really. I can pin this on the film a little bit, most of it, but a little bit goes, a little of the blame has to go to the marketing and the press that was released around this. So one of my other negatives was how they dealt with certain characters, specifically with Zendaya's Michelle character / MJ, and in Joey Rice's, and then again, this is a small nitpick. Her Betty Brant character was really revealed in the movie that she was Betty Brant. So let's start with the more minor one first. When she was cast, and she was from The Nice Guys, and I think she's one of the best up and coming young actresses. She was hilarious in Nice Guys, and she was good in her relatively small role in this film. But she's a blonde actress, and she's relatively young, and they give her a headband that makes her look exactly like Gwen Stacy. And I can't help but feel, and maybe this is me projecting, but I can't help but feel that they were baiting us. They were saying, hey, look, this is going to be Gwen Stacy, and we're going to start it off young so they can build a relationship in high school, and then they just do a bait and switch in the film, and all this end, it says almost at the very beginning, this is Betty Brant, and that she looks nothing like she was in the original Spider-Man, and she looks nothing like she did in the comics, and she really looks like Gwen Stacy. So I can't help but think that maybe they were teasing us a little. That may be a fault of the marketing, for all I know. But the biggest one that I had a problem with was Zendaya's character. And it's not the fact that she doesn't look like the typical redhead, the redhead MJ that we've seen both in the Raimi trilogy and we were supposed to see in the Amazing Spider-Man, Mark Webb's Amazing Spider-Man, and the one that we've seen in the comic, the foxy redhead, the really hot one that Peter Parker shouldn't be able to land, but then he does. That face of tiger hit the jackpot, that kind of lady. And Zendaya's character in this film is far and away. She's very separated from that, and I'm fine with making changes in the MJ character. We've seen it done before, and personally, I didn't like it, but a lot of people do. But anyway, the fact is that we've seen it before. The problem is with this film, they have her in this film, introduces Michelle, and at the very end, she goes, "Oh yeah, but my friends call me MJ." You know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of The Dark Knight Rises. Remember The Dark Knight Rises when John Blake at the very end, "Oh, you should go by your name. You should go by your given name, Robin." And everyone hated that, and I hated that, and I hate this too. If she was going to be MJ from the beginning, just straight up tell us. You don't go in this offhand way of trying to hide this reveal and build it up to this big thing, because that's just going to piss off everybody. It's going to piss off the hard MJ fans who really want the more comic accurate ones. It's going to piss off the ones who wanted a new fun character, a great character, and I loved her character in the film, but a new great character, and it doesn't work for anybody. But those are the big two negatives in the film for me. And again, those are smaller things. One of them happens at the very end of the film, as a little tag-on thing, and the other is just an ongoing small bit of the film. But overall, I really did enjoy this film. It is currently in my top 10 of the year, but I don't think it's gonna be there at the beginning, and it is currently last of the comic book films that I've seen this year. But out of the three major ones, Logan, Wonder Woman, and Spider-Man, we've had a really, really great year for superhero films. Already much better than last year. We're already 3 for 3 this year. Unless I'm missing one. Oh, I guess you can count Lego Batman, but I'm not going to count that. I'm talking live action. But the biggest part of this movie, the biggest thing that makes this great is Tom Holland. And we had seen Tom Holland as Spider-Man in Civil War, and we got about, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes collectively of him. And from the beginning, he had this on-screen presence that combined great aspects from Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, and I love both. I love aspects from both. I don't like aspects from both. And I'm not saying that Tom Holland is a perfect Spider-Man, but he takes the fun personality, the quippy nature of Spider-Man. Normally, I don't really like a lot of the Marvel quips, but they really worked in this film because I feel like they really work in context of the Spider-Man character. And they take the awkwardness that the Tobey Maguire had in high school. In the original Spider-Man, Raimi Spider-Man, he is an outcast in that film. He's a nerd, and so is Tom Holland in this film. And he's an outcast and a nerd. Well, I wouldn't say outcast, but he's not exactly popular. He gets picked on by Flash, and he's a nerd, and in a school full of nerds. So that kind of just goes to exemplify just how much of a nerd he is. And I really like how Tom could take both aspects and combine them to create the best of both worlds. And he was funny, he was great in the action, and he just had a great on-screen presence that made you really feel like this was Spider-Man, and that this was a kid, and this was a kid still trying to figure out who he was, trying to figure out who his powers and what his place in the world is now, after coming from this big scale battle where he's fighting with seasoned superheroes, seasoned war veterans, whatever. And he's coming back to the real world. He's coming back and he's being that street level, that friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, the grounded guy. And it's really cool just to see him try to adjust, because he knows that he can do more. But he's not given that chance, and he still wants to. He wants to prove himself, and this film was really about Peter learning to prove himself. So Tom Holland, he's a great he's one of if not the biggest positive in the film. But the second one, and this is about on par, is the villain. And this isn't something that I say a lot about Marvel villains. And as much as I've loved the superhero films this year, the Wonder Woman and Logan, their villains have been kind of weak. And this is a trend that I'll say time and time again, it's happening a lot in the superhero films. And I understand, because the studios want to focus on the films. Why market? Why put all this money into superhero film when the focus isn't on the hero? When the audience doesn't learn, that doesn't want to cheer for the superhero? Why make the superhero film about them? Why not just make a supervillain film? A lot of the times the villains serve the heroes, but in this one, you get in Spider-Man Homecoming, you get this relationship between the Vulture and Spider-Man, that where you understand where both sides are coming from. The film cold opens with Vulture to help explain where he's coming from, and I really love that. They've done that a few times, and they've been doing that a little bit more often, Marvel, but this time I want to say it was the first time they did it with a villain, and if it wasn't, it's the most effective time they did it. And he was already a good villain. He was a decent villain, going up to that twist when you find out that he's Liz's dad halfway through the movie. When you find out Michael Keaton, Adrian Toomes, the Vulture, whatever you want to call him, was Liz's father, Peter Parker's love interest, and he opens that door and you see him. That is a twist I did not see coming. My heart dropped, and instantly he went from a good villain to a great villain, because that car ride scene, you can feel the tension, and it's great acting by both Tom Holland and Michael Keaton, because they both know that something's up. Tom at first knows a little bit more than Michael Keaton's character, obviously, but he's eyeing him, and then you can see the gears turning in Toomes' head. You can see, wait a second, this kid, I'm adding all these pieces together. This makes sense. And then it comes to the part you see in the trailers where he has the gun. He's looking back at him. He's like, I'm going to kill everybody you love. And that's menacing. And for once in a long time, or for the first time in a long time with a Marvel villain, I really felt like there were legit stakes. Like he would do this because he was protecting his family. It wasn't like Malekith, where he wanted to take over the universe for some ridiculous reason. No, this guy, he was fighting for his family, and you could sympathize with him. You could sympathize with him to the point where at the very end with Peter Parker, or when he's fighting Spider-Man, when he has the arc reactors and the suit's about to blow up, and Pete's like, no, wait, it's gonna blow up. I was on the edge of my seat. I was scared for Vulture. Normally, you're supposed to be like, all right, let the villain blow himself up. He's the villain. That's fine. This time, I was like, I don't want him to die. What's going to happen with Liz? Like, we don't want her to be fatherless. That would suck, right? And that's how I know that's the hallmark of a great villain, when you can cheer for them and you care for their well-being. They might not be doing the greatest things. And the Vulture in this film certainly wasn't the greatest guy. He straight up murders some people, and he's stealing, and he's selling on the black market. He's making money bad ways. But there's enough in there. You see he's a good father. You see he cares for his wife. You see everything that he's doing is to provide for his family, to adapt to this world that he feels that he has been slighted. He feels that he has been screwed over by the government. He feels he's been screwed over by the Starks, which is kind of weird because I'm going to start talking Game of Thrones soon, but he's been screwed over by Tony Stark. And that's what makes him so good, because it's applicable to real life. A lot of people are one step away from being Adrian Toomes, from being the Vulture. Maybe not to the extent that he is, but most people will fight that hard for their family. Most people do fight that hard for their family. So running out of time, but another positive I wanted to talk about was Tony Stark in this film. And this is really surprising because the marketing, I don't know if it's Sony's marketing. I don't know if Marvel botched the marketing this time, but it made him seem like he was in this movie so much. I'm not even joking. I don't know why you're listening to this if you haven't seen the movie yet, but most of Tony's scenes in the film are in the trailers. He's in the film for maybe 10 minutes at most, but the 10 minutes that he's in there, they're used really well. He serves as this mentor figure. In the previous films, Aunt May has served as the mentor figure, the figure that Peter is really fighting for. He's really trying to impress. Well, not so much impress, but the person who he goes to and has those talks, has those very important talks that really change, that shift the momentum in the film. In this film, Aunt May is kind of pushed to the side, and that's fine by me. I know some other people have some issues. I've heard some issues about Aunt May's role in this, but if you're gonna have Tony Stark, you're gonna use him, and I really like how he was there. He was more mature in this film. He was there to help mentor and guide Peter along, because he's just a 15-year-old kid. He's not ready to be a full-on Avenger yet. And Tony knows this, but Tony also knows what it's like to be ambitious, to be driven, to really have the world in the palm of your hand, to have all that power and have that itch to do something about it. And I think he was used great in this film. He wasn't too much Tony, I wasn't yearning for more. So those are my basic thoughts on Spider-Man Homecoming. As I said, it's still not my favorite. I can't really point out a part of the movie, a major part of the movie, something that's not nitpicking that I didn't like about it. There's no big flaws, but there aren't really moments that I can say, oh man, I love this so much. This is the greatest Spider-Man moment I've ever seen. I know I'm going well against the grain when I say that I prefer Mark Webb's The Amazing Spider-Man, but that film still is in my heart my favorite Spider-Man film, and this is a great film. I can't really point out any major flaws, but I also can't point out any major positives for me either. They're just good positives. They're good. And I think a lot of that issue comes with Marvel playing it. I don't want to say playing a little safe, because that has negative connotations, but a lot of the changes on this, even the negatives and that I outlined before, the stuff with Aunt May that some people had, it all has to do with, we've had 5 Spider-Man films so far, and they really needed to emphasize that it's in the MCU. They really needed to differentiate themselves and say to the general audiences, look, I know you've seen 5 Spider-Man films in theaters in the last 20 years, but stick with us. This one's different. They really made a big huzzah about how it's coming back to Marvel, and this time it's going to be different. So they really need to change things up, and I understand. I get it. And some Spider-Man fans, they're rightfully upset. I get that too. And I get some of the changes. I just wish some of them were executed a little bit better. But regardless, this is a great film. It's a really fun time. It's hilarious. The comedic moments hit well. The supporting characters. Ned's great. I love seeing an Asian character, an almost lead, a supporting character in a major role in the film, and he's hilarious. There's the one particular line, and if you've seen the movie, you know it. I know it's the spoilers, but still, sometimes people listen to it anyways. They don't care about spoilers, so I don't want to ruin the joke. But he has some great moments in this, and I love seeing Asian actors, Asian American actors, in major blockbusters, really getting that exposure. And I hope he comes back for the second one. And this is most definitely getting a second one. I think they already have one. They already have a release date. Anyways, I'm getting way far into the Cinema Chat segment. I've been going for 25 minutes now. So, great film, really fun time. If you haven't seen it already, go and see it. If you loved it a lot, if you liked it a lot, go see it again. Although Apes is coming out next week. Save your money if you really want to see Apes. I'll be right back. I'll take a short break. We're going to talk about Game of Thrones. Alright, free chat segment. We're going... No sports today, guys. Sorry, I really would like to talk about sports. It's kind of slow right now. Jays are not doing so well, and NBA free agency nonsense has slowed down. So I want to talk about Game of Thrones. I'm recording this Friday night because I have no life. So that means Game of Thrones is almost a week away from catching up. I just finished my rewatch of season 6. Well, kind of a rewatch. I've been skipping through a little bit, but with Game of Thrones, I'm just gonna get right into it. With Game of Thrones, I am a book reader. I haven't finished all the books. I'm stuck on A Feast of Crows because, for those who've read the books, most people will agree Feast of Crows is the weakest one, and it gets really slow, especially with the Brienne stuff. It's slow. She's literally just walking through the Riverlands, looking for a noble girl, 13, auburn hair. She says it's her sister, and Pod says sir, ma'am, a lot. That's basically the extent of Brienne's chapters, and it gets really slow. But then there's other stuff like Jaime's chapters, which are pretty darn great. Cersei, where you can see where she's starting to turn. So I'm stuck on Feast of Crows, but I have spoiled myself. I don't really care about the book spoilers. I have spoiled myself for Dance of Dragons. I know what happens, so I know what proper was supposed to happen in the Song of Ice and Fire and in Game of Thrones, but they've now gone past that. So when I was watching Game of Thrones, it got a little frustrating, especially with season 5, where they went way in another direction, especially with my favorite character, Stannis. They butchered his character, and I'm usually, with adaptations, with comic book or book to movie adaptations or book to TV adaptations or whatever, I'm usually not a guy who likes to nitpick at these certain things that say, oh, that's inaccurate to the comics or that's inaccurate to the books, because it's an adaptation. As long as you stay true to the characters and you make a good story, it's okay, because this is a different medium. If you wanted the comics, you read the damn comics. But the problem is with what they did with Stannis in season 5, and what really turned me off for a little while, because seasons 1 to 4, they're great. They make little changes here and there, but for the most part, the characters, they all stay true to who they are in the books and who George R.R. Martin created them like. But in season 5, the 9th or 10th episode, the infamous one where everybody turned on Stannis, and maybe some people weren't on Stannis aside from the beginning, but a lot of Stannis supporters, they turned on him, is when he burned Shireen. And oh, spoilers, by the way. Yeah, I think that should have been clear. This is spoilers, since I was already talking about season 6. Anyways, he burned Shireen and for a sacrifice, and he just ended up dying the next episode off screen. That, in my opinion, is the most atrocious act that D&D, I honestly don't remember the names, David Benny Weiss or something, the creators of Game of Thrones, the writers of Game of Thrones, they butchered his character, because book Stannis as a character, he wouldn't do that. He loves his daughter. He wants his daughter to be on the throne. And George R.R. Martin, before any of you come at me, George R.R. Martin did say that Shireen will burn in a Winds of Winter or in an upcoming book. He said that is something he incorporated and he wanted it in the show. But the way it played out, the way Stannis was manipulated by Melisandre, and the way he came to that decision, and the fight he had after, that's not Stannis, and that's not the character, and that's what really started to turn me off. There are other things like Barristan Selmy's death in season 5, the whole Sansa and Ramsay situation. That I understand a little bit more, but season 5 is the real low point in the series for me. And Sand Snakes, Dorne, awful. I really like the Sand Snakes in A Feast of Crows, actually, despite saying that. Feast of Crows is a little slow. The Sand Snakes and Dorne storyline is a great political, almost Civil War-esque conspiracy, or Civil War-esque storyline in in Song of Ice and Fire, and they turned it into, oh, you need the bad pussy. That's unacceptable. I think they've realized that in season 6, they've almost completely cut out the Doran, the Doran storyline. They killed Doran Martell, the leader of Doran, of the Martells, the prince of the Dornish kingdom, just to kind of cut their ties, I guess, because they realized what a big fuck up they made. Season 5 really turned me off, so I was really wary going to season 6, so I didn't watch every episode, and then Battle of the Bastards, then Tower of Joy, then Winds of Winter, the episode, and those 2 episodes, back-to-back, Battle of the Bastards and Winds of Winter, those are some of the best episodes of Game of Thrones in the series, some of the best episodes of television I've seen, and Game of Thrones is right back on track. So over the past few days, I've been rewatching season 6, and I really like it. And what a lot of hardcore Song of Ice and Fire fans really have to understand, I think, and including myself, part of me, I still was coming to grips with it, and I came to the books after I figured out the show, but I really fell in love with the books. But what I think a lot of people have to understand from now is this is basically over-glorified fan fiction, and I don't mean that in a bad way. You can't go into season 7 or season 6 with the expectation that the world in Game of Thrones, the TV show, is not the same world that George R.R. Martin created in A Song of Ice and Fire. It's developed and changed and grew into this other, this new parallel world that is now on television. So the rules are different. One big example: when Daenerys when she kills all the cows in Vaes Dothrak, she is unburnt again. In the books, that doesn't happen. She can still get burnt. The part where she was immune to fire was a one-time thing created by blood magic in the book. In the show, she seems to be fireproof, and that's just something that book readers have to wrap their heads around. Daenerys is fireproof in the show. She's not in the books, but that's just the way it is. They're going to have to take liberties, and this season, they're going to diverge even more. You don't know, by the end of season 8, it might be a completely different ending than what George R.R. Martin had planned, and maybe there's elements in there. There certainly were elements of season 6 that were sprinkled in there that will be in Winds of Winter. George R.R. Martin has confirmed there's certain things such as the Hodor theory, R plus L equals J. I don't think he outright claimed it, but most people have already generally accepted that Jon is not Ned's bastard, and that's even before season 6. That's way back in the 90s when these books first came out. This has been a theory for a long time. It just doesn't make sense, for Ned to betray his honor like that. For season 7, I'm going in there with an open mind because I am enjoying the show for what it is. I'm not comparing to the books anymore. These are characters that are based off of the beloved characters in the books. Just to sum it up, the way I see it is, I know this is a podcast, you can't see where my hands are going, but with season 1 and Game of Thrones, the book of Game of Thrones, they're running parallel, and they hit little bumps on the way, where there's little changes. With Rob, he meets Talisa and not, oh my gosh, I don't even remember her name. It's been a while since I've read Storm of Swords. But he meets someone else, not Talisa. Rob still gets killed at the Red Wedding, but eventually the paths start to diverge, and at a point the book path stops because there's no more content. So the show path keeps going, but it's turning a little bit more. It's going to a different destination. It may come back, it may diverge another way. You don't know, but the point is that this show is a completely different entity, and I think a lot of book readers have to wrap their minds around it. You can still enjoy the show for what it is. It's a great fantasy show based off of some certain characters, or based off of the world that George R.R. Martin created. It's not an adaptation anymore. It's its own show. Anyways, that is about all I have, all the time I have for this episode. I'm really excited for July 16th, I think it is, 16th, when Game of Thrones Season 7 starts. I'm really excited to see what happens. I may or may not have read some spoilers, I've seen some set pics, so I'm really excited to see what happens, if they're true, if they're not. From what I've read, could be pretty cool. If not, then I'm going in blind just like everybody else, and that'll be cool too. So, thanks for sticking me. Thanks for sticking with me all the way to the end if you made it this far. Please leave a rating on iTunes if you can. Leave a comment. It really, really helps get this podcast everywhere. If you're on YouTube, leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment. Share this on your social media if you can, or if you're willing. If you really like this, share this to your friends. Links to all my social media, my Twitter, my Instagram, they're all in the links below, and all the descriptions. Next week is not a solo. I have a guest next week. You'll find out who that is. But for now, chat with you guys next week.